I'm going to see if it's Jackie who has been calling, because I've got a few words to preempt this if it is.
Yeah, it's
Hello?
So the Zizeki, and in this case is referring to the Slovenian philosopher Slavoj Žižek and his criticism of transsexual ideologists.
Right, Jackie, I want to preempt this because I've been on the show the last 2 weeks behind the scenes when you've called. And I'm going to do something I never, ever do. And I'm going to tell you that I want you to take a different subject than the one you've called in with. And the reason I'm going to do that is because the last 2 weeks you've you've been quoting Jordan Peterson, you've been quoting all these different philosophers. You're doing it again today. And the last 2 weeks I've asked you to do the same thing each time. Give us your position on something.
This is my position.
Right. So what I want you to do is I do not want you to name any other philosophers. I don't want you to name anybody. I want you to give me your position and your own reasoning. I will tell you now, if I hear Jordan Peterson's name mentioned once during this call, I will drop you. If you're so fascinated with Jordan Peterson, get him to call the show. I'm not bothered about your adulation for him. So let's have a good call, but let's hear your position on it.
Yeah, so my position here, I do get it from Freudian psychoanalysis, but it is my own. Basic claim of transsexual ideologists that a man can consciously choose to become a woman, or a woman can consciously choose to become a man, is wrong because, like Freud said, part of our sexual identity is structured in the embedded in our subconscious, and as such, the choice to choose a sexual identity is not something an active subject can do on a conscious level. It's part of our subconscious, right? The Oedipus complex, for example, or the Electra complex in girls, I believe sexual identity is influenced in our subconscious. Not the same that Freud said, but similar.
Okay, I agree. People don't choose to become, to identify as a woman or a man. I absolutely agree with you. It's not a choice. I'm completely on level with you. I don't think it's a choice. Aaron, what are your thoughts on it?
I believe it. I agree. It's not a choice. We're born the way we're born. We identify how we identify within the society in which we live. And I've never seen any evidence to support the fact that we choose any of those things.
So we seem to be on the same page, Jackie. It's a good start.
Well, I thought secular humanists, which you guys are, believe that transsexual identities are valid and consciously choice and fluid and all this.
That's not a conscious choice. Jackie, I'm going to ask you a question. You'd feel free not to answer it. I don't want to get too personal. Would you consider yourself, I'm a cis straight male. Would you consider yourself a cis straight male?
I am a male who is predominantly attracted to females.
Yeah, so am I. Could you choose, Jackie? Could you choose, just as a matter of conscious choice, to be attracted to men instead of women?
No.
I agree with you. I couldn't either. So you've answered your own question. We appear to be completely on the same page with this. I don't really have any argument with you. I don't think people choose it. I do object a little bit to you insisting that I'm a secular humanist because you don't know whether I am a secular humanist. But apart from that, we appear to agree people don't choose, what gender they are. Aaron, have you got any comments?
No, I think we're totally on board. When people like to make these arguments about, people choose their sexuality or people choose their gender, I like to really focus it down onto one sexuality. Like, okay, you're heterosexual. Do you like redheads? Do you like blondes? Do you like skinny? Do you like athletic? All those things are all preferences that we're all born with. We don't choose what we prefer and what we like. And so if we widen that out from heterosexuality to all the different sexuality, to all the different genders, it just makes more sense that we just don't choose any of that. We're just born that way.
And on that note, by the way, I prefer all of the above.
Critical transsexual.
Sorry, Jackie, go on.
I thought you guys were broadly from what I've seen, pro-transsexual line, but I may have been wrong.
What does that mean, pro-transsexual line? Does that mean we're pro-transsexual? I mean, because I am pro people expressing their gender identity the way they want to express it.
As am I. What has that got to do with people choosing it or not?
Well, if the transsexual claim is, I'm a man or I'm a woman and it's all fluid and it's socially constructed and I can change and there's no part of it which is evolutionary psychology, that is the woke claim.
You seem to... Okay, so I'm going to interrupt you again. So here's what woke means to me, and I'm sure it means this to most people. The original definition of woke came out from the Black community, and it meant essentially just giving respect to people for, the way they are. Essentially, that's the black and white of it, just respecting people. It's now become a wider thing, and, to include the wider community, not just people of color. So woke basically means you respect people for who they are and the decisions they make. That's not a bad thing, is it? Are you against that?
Well, it depends on what type of decisions they make. But nowadays, woke has a pretty exclusive connotation in cultural Marxist politics.
Not to me, it doesn't. You seem to be operating on a different operation of the word, which doesn't match the dictionary definition.
Well, I'm talking about the colloquial definition I think most people online use.
Most people who I can interact with online share the same definition as me. You seem to be, are you going to certain places that use a different definition, Jackie?
Well, yes, like you said earlier, JBP. I'm not going to mention name because you said you'll ban me if I...
I didn't say I'd ban you. I said I'd drop you the call. Jackie, I really, really want to be... Look, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. Since you've started calling the show, we've had countless people call for me to ban you from this show. People are saying, get rid of him. People even say they skip the call when they know you're on. I want to give you the benefit of the doubt. I don't want to ban you. I don't want to drop you. What I do want is a good conversation with you, an honest conversation with you where you're expressing your opinion, not the opinion of someone else. Now, a large problem seems to be over the past few weeks that a lot of the things you're saying on your own opinion, it seems to be stuff you're parroting from Jordan Peterson and others. And an example of why I think this and why it's not your opinion is when, Ben and Scott brought me on last week when you were talking about Eastern religions. Now, I happen to know a few things about Eastern religions. And when I tried digging down into what you were claiming about Eastern religions, I'm sorry to say you were wrong on a lot of those things. So it seems that parroting people is not equipping you very well for these conversations. If we have a conversation about your opinion, the way you've thought through it personally, using your own reasoning and the conclusions you've come to, we can have a much, much better conversation than parroting somebody else. And we can have a much more honest conversation. If you don't know anything about Eastern religions, don't mention Eastern religions. Or say, it's my understanding that this, but I may be wrong, rather than asserting it as fact. And we can have these much, much better conversations when we talk like this. And that's all I want you to do. I don't want to ban you. I don't want to drop you. I don't want to shout at you every week. What I want to do is have a good conversation with you. Aaron, sorry, I seem to be bringing you into a kind of a private argument here.
No,
but
it's fine.
have you got a response to that as well?
I just have a question. Like, what's wrong with what you seem to be arguing, Jackie, that being woke is a bad thing? Why do you think being woke is a bad thing?
Because woke, at least as defined by most people in the online culture war, involves regressive leftist things like collectivist identity politics, authoritarianism, advocacy for censorship, etc. Okay,
those are some big words and some big arguments. I don't think that those things have anything to do with woke. Being woke means when people share their experiences, you believe them. You believe what their experience is. What's wrong with believing people when they share when they share, hey, this is my gender. This is how I want to express my gender. How does that? Why is that? The people that make that have made it that political are not the people who want to make the country more woke. It's people that are against inclusion, the people that are against equity, that are trying to make woke be a bad thing. What's your response to that?
Well, so first of all, that's not how most people. But second, and even in your case, it is wrong to say,
Jackie, I want to stop you there. I want to stop you again. You keep saying that's not how most people view this. Now, I can say from my experience that the majority of people who I interact with online do use woke the same as I do. In that way, you seem to have a different understanding of that. So rather than saying, and this is what I mean about kind of correcting you, it's not about trying to insult your intelligence. I'm just trying to give you better tools to have these conversations with. Rather than saying most people, say, in the circles I interact in and the online communities I go to, the majority of people or most people use it in this way. That's not to say that most people use it that way. They're certainly not using it correctly in regards to its dictionary definition. So they seem to be, as Aaron said, politicizing this word. And it doesn't give good conversations to do that. We're all about having good, honest conversations here. We're not trying to politicize anything. When we use the word woke, what we're talking about is respecting people. And to give you an example of what I mean by that, doesn't mean you have to agree with everything they say. I respect that you have a belief in whatever your religious position is, in your belief in God. I don't agree with you on it, but I respect that you have that belief. I'm not going to I'm going to criticize some of the elements of that, and I'm going to criticize, maybe some of your reasoning of that with reasons of my own. But I'm not just going to jump on you and say, you are wrong because I do not agree with you. You're not wrong because I don't agree with you. If I believe you're wrong, I'm going to give you specific reasonings. And this seems to be the difference between the kind of circles you're running in and the circles I'm running in. Whereas the circles you're running in seem to just want to disagree with people and define things in a certain way to politicize it. What I'm all about is having a legitimate conversation with someone and trying to dig down into what they think and how they assess things. Already today, we've touched upon a way that you could correct yourself in conversations. And I'm not dismissing you when I say that. I'm trying to give you better tools. If you can say, well, in these circles, this is what I encounter, rather than just a broad brush, everybody thinks this. I could broad brush and say every Christian believes in the Trinity, but I would be wrong by doing that because not every Christian believes in the Trinity. That's just the Orthodox Christian opinion. So we've got to be very, very careful when we're having these conversations, these nuanced conversations about exactly what we're saying. And that's what I'm trying to get across to you. I'm not trying to be aggressive to you or dismissive of you. I want us to have a good conversation, and it is my aim. You are my project, Jackie. It is my aim to have these conversations. If you want to keep calling this show, whether I'm hosting or not, I will jump in, as you full well know. I want to get you to the point where you can have a conversation with your opinions and give your reasoning.
Okay. Are you done?
I am. You may talk.
Okay. So what was the original question again? It's been so long that I don't even remember.
Aaron, do you want to repeat your question?
The other host?
Yeah, what's wrong with being woke? You seem to think that being woke is a bad thing. And from our perspective, being woke is a good thing because it's more inclusive. It advocates for equality. And so what's wrong with being woke?
Well, because not all decisions are made equal. Some choices are worse for an individual and societal health than others.
Okay, well, can you give us a specific example of some choice? That's a very general statement. We can't really dive into general statements. Can you give us a specific example of a choice that a person, individual can make that we should not allow them to make for society's good? Because that sounds that sounds.
For example,
that's what it sounds like you're arguing for, is that we should be able to restrict somebody's choices for the benefit of society.
You're going to let me speak, please.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead,
Jackie. I'm going to interrupt, and I'm going to say no. I'm not. You don't. Aaron was trying to finish his question to you. You don't jump in and say, "Can you let me speak, please?" You wait till he's finished, and then you respond. This is how conversations work. Aaron, have you completed your question?
I have completed my question. Yes, please.
Jackie, please feel free to respond.
Publicly using heroin and discarding the needles in a playground, for example.
Okay, that is a specific topic. So you are against publicly using heroin and disposing needles, and I think I would too. Am against that.
As
Richard? Yeah,
Okay.
Absolutely.
So then you're against including that type of decision or lifestyle. So, okay, good.
Including it in what? What do you mean including it in what?
You're against including that lifestyle. You think that lifestyle is worse than other lifestyles, and so you discriminate against that lifestyle because that decision is harmful to societal health. Okay.
Yes, I think using heroin in general is not going to be beneficial to an individual. So I'm going to support policies and laws that are going to help people not do heroin, and especially not do them in public places.
Okay, so we're against public heroin use because it is dangerous to other people's health and it involves externalities. So in that case, we're against an aspect of inclusion.
Well, I would mostly argue that. Go ahead. Sorry.
If your definition of wokeness is about inclusion and equality of outcome, which is communism, then that's an example where you have no.
Jackie, you are listening to some utter fucking shit, aren't you, sir? You
I hear a lot of talking
do
points.
listen. Yeah, have you listened to anything myself or Aaron have said during this call? Because it doesn't seem like you have. It seems like your brain has been stuck in these communities you seem to be a part of, where, I mean, I don't know. Fortunately, I'm not a part of these communities, but I expect they're all manly men. I expect they all drive pickup trucks and probably don't even fucking wash them. And I'm sure they all carry guns about with them because that's what manly men do. I'm sure I've heard it. I've heard it on the news. That's what people like that do. But it's all a load of fucking shit, sir. It really, really is. You're not doing what I asked you to do. You're not giving us your opinion on the subject. You're returning to these ideas that you've heard about them. So let's have a conversation. Let's just get rid of the term woke completely. Let's just fuck it off out of the door. And let's just talk about respecting people and kind of doing it in such a way that we're not infringing on their rights to be who they are. Notice I say to be who they are, rather than to infringe on their rights to just do any old shit they want to do, regardless of how harmful that is to themselves or society, because we're not talking about that. We're talking about the rights of people to be who they are and express who they are.
Then do you have a specific example of that?
You're the one who called in. Do you?
Well, I don't know if you mean accepting people for who they are. Yes, but I don't know what you mean. So could I have a reference for that?
Well, yeah, I'll give you the reference point of, as I've already raised with you, people who are Christian, people who have a Christian identity. And I'm just picking, if you want to use a different religion, that's fine. I'm just plucking it out of the heart because we talk to more Christians than anybody else. People who have a Christian identity, they have a right to identify as who they are and, live their lives as they see fit in accordance with that, as long as it doesn't infringe upon other people's rights, which I'm sure everybody would agree on. And I'm not against people having a Christian identity and expressing who they are, expressing their Christian values and things in public. I'm not against them doing that. I will have conversations if I disagree with them, but I'm not against the right for them to express who they are. I don't consider them the expression of who they are in and of itself an harmful act. Now, as I said, we can have discussions about what they might do, and that might vary vastly amongst self-identifying Christians as to what specific acts they do. I know many Christians who live lives that I don't consider at all harmful to anybody, other than the fact that they have this unjustified belief in a supernatural entity, which I think could possibly harm themselves. But other than that, you know, I know Christians and Muslims and many other religious people who live very, according to my standards, very good life. And I respect their right to do that. There are other Christians I know who do have harmful beliefs and want to kind of infringe them on other people, and I would have conversations with them about that. But I do not object to their identity as a Christian. So that's an example of what I'm talking about.
Well, then at that point, then yes, I would agree with you. It's just I don't know how relevant that is because Christians, at least in America and Europe, are not generally speaking persecuted politically. In the Middle East, they are. So it would be more relevant of a discussion in Islamic government countries, but not as much the West. But certainly, if you're just talking broadly about inclusion of what people identify as culturally or politically or theologically, yes. That's just at that point, I don't know how important it is to discuss that topic because people aren't being excluded like that.
So again, we seem to agree. When this is why I want to have these conversations and why I might sometimes come on hard with you, but I want to get to the nitty-gritty because it seems that we actually agree on this. When we're talking about inclusion and people's respecting people for who they are and how they identify, we seem to agree on that, like we did at the start of the call.
Well, my original point of the call was I was going to make the case that Zizek makes against transsexual inclusion.
I'm not bothered what case someone else makes. I'm interested in what you think about something.
Well,
I'm really not interested. I'm not being rude, but I talk about with my peers in religious studies. I talk about philosophy all the time, and unless we're having a specific conversation about Zizek himself and his ideas, then I'm not interested in his ideas. When it comes to your opinion of something, I'm interested in your ideas. If you're for someone who seems to be so interested in philosophy, you do a great lot of sucking up to other people and not a lot of expressing your opinion on something. If I'm having a philosophical conversation, and this happens in ethics a lot, if I'm discussing ethics, I don't always, on a lot of ethical subjects, I don't always have a hard and fast opinion. So what I will say in that case is, on this subject, I don't have a hard and fast opinion. We can take this into consideration or we can take that into consideration. We can talk about these different aspects of it. But on those subjects where I do have an opinion, I will say, this is my opinion. I think this because, and I will go into the details of why I think that using my own reasoning. I don't need to quote someone else. And the reason I don't need to quote someone else is because I understand the subject matter enough to talk about it from my own perspective. Aaron, I've been talking quite a lot. I want to give you a chance to jump in as well.
No, I agree, and I think Jackie seems to be holding. Jackie, it seems like you're holding two different thoughts in your head at the same time. On one hand, you agree with us that it's not good, that we should be accepting of people for who they are and for the attributes that they have that they cannot change about themselves. Race, gender, sex, those kinds of attributes that nobody can do anything about. Nobody should be discriminated against or harmed because of those attributes. It seems like you agree with us, but then you also want to argue that there's something about there's some talking points you want to regurgitate or say about how that is some also harmful to society at large. So I'm a little bit confused of what you're actually arguing for.
Well, I would argue people should be included regardless of their identity, but I don't believe gender identity specifically can be changed because of psychoanalytic reasons. I believe evolutionary.
Nobody's arguing that you can change your gender identity. Nobody's arguing that one day you wake up and decide, hey, today I'm going to be a Zork, or hey, today I'm going to be this gender or whatever. Nobody here that you're talking to is arguing that. We're arguing that it doesn't
That's
change.
what trans people claim.
No.
Jackie, I'm going to interrupt you, right? Next time Dr. Ben hosts a show,
Call him, yeah.
which you had an opportunity to do last week, neither myself or Aaron are trans. Next time Dr. Ben hosts a show, because he is trans and he is a medical doctor, you call the show and you talk to Dr. Ben. You talk to Dr. Ben about this subject, because we seem to be largely agreeing on it. With the way you're phrasing it, when we're trying to, like, when we unpick everything, we tend to largely agree on stuff. But I want you to talk to Dr. Ben on the subject, because Dr. Ben is a trans person and he can tell you his feelings, and he can tell you, that about his identity and how it's not a choice. And, you're sitting here telling us that, well, it is a choice. Trans people say it is a choice, but it is not. So call the trans person who hosts this show and ask him his opinion.
Yeah. And I also like to say, you can hold whatever opinions you want, Jackie. If you don't agree that a trans man is male, then you can hold that opinion, but at least fucking have the respect to use the pronouns that they've asked you to use. It would be just as disrespectful for me to call you she as it would be for you to call Dr. Ben she. I would not do that to you. No. And so I would politely ask that you not do that to other people, regardless of your beliefs, that you give the people the respect that they're asking you to give them at a bare minimum.
It's my ideological belief that Dr. Ben, because they were born female, is
what the fuck does that even mean, Jackie? What does my ideological belief mean?
My belief, my ideology, what I'm convinced of propositionally.
Right. Yes. I don't know how much. Well, I do know how much philosophy I've read, because you tell us all. I don't know how much philosophy I've actually kind of taken in and understood, because you keep doing this thing where you keep kind of throwing in extra words where you don't need to. Just look, man, I can't speak for Aaron. I've studied enough philosophy that I understand at least the basic concepts. You don't have to throw extra words in there to sound smart. Just say it's my belief. Just say that. That's enough.
Okay, yeah. It's my belief. But if you guys really don't want to talk about transgender or transsexual issues, that's okay. I thought that would be relevant to the broad topic, because you guys are also a secular humanist show, and that type of issue does come up.
Well, I'm just wondering, how does it impact your life to not call someone by their preferred pronouns? Why can't you do that?
Is that because my conviction is they are of the female gender, and she is a nation of pronoun for the female gender. That's that.
Okay, well, it's my conviction that you are also of the female gender, so I'm going to call you she, her.
Yeah, it's also my conviction that you're a dick. Goodbye.
That is also, we'll call you Dick.
I'm bored now. I'm bored. When someone disrespects not only just a show of the host anyway, another human being. It's someone who is a very, very good friend of mine like that. Yeah, sorry, you can fuck right off. I'm not interested in talking to you.